She hugged me tight, like she knew she might forget me tomorrow. Have you ever loved someone so much and watched them fade away day by day? This is a story of love, of loss, and of a bond that even dementia can't erase. A hug that lingers. She holds me now like she knows something I don't, like she's holding on to the very last thread of something slipping through her fingers. Her hugs used to be casual, even distracted, something she did while chatting or bustling around the kitchen. But now they're different. They're slower, tighter, more present, as if every hug carries an unspoken plea. Don't let go yet, not just yet. Sometimes I wonder if on some instinctual level she knows what's happening to her, that some quiet part of her still understands the storm brewing in her mind. And maybe that's why, when she pulls me in close, her body trembles just a little, not from fear, but from knowing, from feeling the weight of what's to come, even if she can't name it. Her scent is still the same, that comforting mix of lavender and the faintest hint of cinnamon remnants of the perfume she used to wear and the cookies she always baked in winter. I breathe it in and try to imprint it in my memory, like a photograph I can revisit when the real thing begins to fade. I find myself memorizing everything. Now the soft gray of her hair, the way it curls just slightly at the ends, the way she hums little tunes with no name while folding towels, her laugh when it escapes, unexpectedly light, girlish, like it belonged to someone far younger. Sometimes she calls me by the wrong name. Sometimes she doesn't use any name at all, just looks at me with warm eyes and says, "There you are." And even if she forgets who I am someday, I will never forget who she is. I will never forget what her hugs felt like when I was a scared teenager, unsure of the world and my place in it. I will never forget how her arms were the safest place on earth after heartbreaks and lost jobs and the days I didn't think I was strong enough to keep going. Now it's my turn to be strong, to hold her the way she once held me, to let her rest her weary head against my shoulder and know deep in her bones that she is loved, even if the word love slips away. That's the cruelest part of dementia. It doesn't just take memories, it takes identity. It erodes the scaffolding of a life, moment by moment, until all that's left are flashes, sensory fragments, drifting like leaves in a wind she can't catch. But in those moments, those rare, golden pockets of clarity, when she wraps her arms around me like she used to, I know she's still in there, and for as long as she is, I'll meet her where she is, in every hug, every whisper, every smile, because no matter how far she drifts, I'll always be here, holding on. The thief who whispers at first, it came like a breeze so soft we barely noticed. She forgot the name of her neighbor, then where she left her keys. We all laughed it off. Just getting old, she said with a smile, brushing it away like a cobweb on her shoulder. But the breeze turned into a draft, then a wind. Now it's a storm that whistles through every corner of our lives. Dementia doesn't break down the door. It doesn't come crashing in like some villain in the night. It's patient, calculated. It sneaks in like a thief, not to steal everything at once, but to test the locks first. A misplaced coffee mug, a birthday card forgotten, the name of her favorite flower suddenly stuck on the tip of her tongue. I remember the first time she looked at me and paused, just a second, but long enough. That hesitation, like her mind was flipping through an empty Rolodex, searching for a name that used to come so easily. She smiled, covered it with a gentle sweetheart, and kissed my cheek. I smiled back, but inside, a piece of me broke. The silence that follows those moments is the worst. It's not loud, it's not angry, it's just hollow. Like something's missing and no one wants to say what it is. She still has good days. Days when she laughs at the same old stories, corrects me on some family detail I got wrong, or tells me I'm too skinny and need to eat more. And I cling to those days like driftwood in a stormy sea. But even on the good days, there's a shadow, a sense that something's off, that the ground beneath us is shifting. Even if we pretend it's solid, I've learned to read the signs. The way she gets quiet in the middle of a sentence. The way she looks at family photos with puzzled affection. The way she asks the same question 3 times in 1 hour. And the way she holds my hand a little tighter than before, like she's afraid to float away. Dementia is clever. It doesn't just take the big things. It takes the little ones first. So gently, you don't even know they're gone until it's too late. And when it takes enough, it doesn't give back. There's no apology, no bargaining, just a slow, relentless unraveling. But I'm not letting go. Not yet. I'll hold on with both hands. And when her memory slips, I'll be her memory. When her words falter, I'll be her voice. When her world fades, I'll paint it bright again. Because even if she forgets who I am, I'll never forget who she is. Little things that go missing. It's never the big things at first. It's the tiny, ordinary pieces of her life pieces we all take for granted that start to vanish. The TV remote ends up in the freezer, her reading glasses in the laundry basket, the salt shaker tucked neatly into the sock drawer. I used to laugh gently and say, "You've got your own filing system." Huh? She would giggle, hand on her heart, and say, "I must be going crazy." But then the laughter faded. It became less funny when she stopped noticing things were missing, less charming when she insisted she never owned a pair of glasses, or that the picture of her husband from 1963 had always been there, even though we just found it behind the couch. I began to realize these weren't accidents. These were warnings, whispers of the storm building inside her mind. Her purse became a time capsule. No, a treasure chest of forgotten fragments. Inside it, 3 combs, a single glove, a handful of coins, greeting cards from a Christmas 5 years ago, and once, a key to a car she hadn't driven since the Clinton administration. I remember asking, "Mom, why do you carry all this?" She looked at me like I'd asked why the sky is blue and said, "I might need them." It wasn't about needing them. It was about holding on to something, anything that made her feel tethered to who she used to be, to a world she could still name. Sometimes she would open her purse, look inside, and sigh, like she was trying to remember why it mattered or who it all belonged to. And I'd sit next to her, quietly, and we'd go through each item together, like archaeologists of her own life. Each object was a clue. Each one carried a memory one I was afraid might disappear before we found it. There's a quiet kind of grief that comes with losing things that don't seem important. The grocery lists she used to write in perfect cursive. The old red lipstick she wore every Sunday, the way she always put her keys in the same little dish by the door. It's like watching a house crumble, one brick at a time, knowing you can't stop it, but still trying to hold up the walls with your bare hands. These little losses, they add up, and suddenly you're not mourning memories, you're mourning routines, familiarities, the very rhythm of who she was. But still, I search for her in the quiet details, in the way she still hums while folding laundry, in the softness of her touch when she brushes a strand of hair from my face, in the purse filled with pieces of a life too precious to throw away. And as long as there are pieces left to hold on to, I will keep holding on. Time travel is real. She sits across from me on the faded blue couch, her hands gently folded, her eyes lit with the spark of memory. "Did I ever tell you about the day I met your father?" she asks, her voice filled with wonder, as though it just happened this morning. And then she begins a story I've heard 100 times, but today it's told like brand new, as vivid and animated as ever. She describes the dress she wore yellow with white daisies, the way he tripped over his own feet trying to impress her, the jukebox playing Sam Cooke in the corner of a dusty diner. For a moment, she's 21 again. She's not an old woman with a diagnosis. She's a girl falling in love for the first time. And I let her take me there because I've learned something, watching her slip through decades with the ease of someone flipping through old records. Time doesn't work the same way for everyone. For her, the present is a blur, but the past is clear, sharp, saturated with color. She can't tell you what she had for breakfast, but she remembers every lyric to You Send Me, and sometimes she sings it softly under her breath, like a lullaby only she understands. She doesn't just remember, she lives it. She talks about conversations she had with people who've been gone for years, about places that no longer exist, smells and sounds that no one else in the room can detect. I used to correct her, gently, patiently, remind her of what was real, but then I realized this is real. To her, these are the places where her mind feels safe, where her soul can rest. Time travel is exhausting. She often seems tired, like she's returned from a long trip no one else can see. Some days, she forgets that her mother is gone and asks if we can call her. Other days, she remembers the funeral and we weep together again. It's a loop, a cycle, a cruel, beautiful carousel. And yet, I've come to find grace in this rhythm. I've stopped fighting it. When she tells me she just got back from the beach with her siblings, I ask what they wore, what games they played. I don't pull her back. I go with her. Because maybe what she needs most isn't a reminder of what's gone, but a companion for the journey she's still on. And in these moments, when the veil of time is thin and her smile is full and real, I catch a glimpse of the girl she used to be, the one who still lives inside her. And I think maybe love is just that, being willing to follow someone into the past so they don't have to go alone. Parallel realities in the fridge. It started with granola bars, 8 boxes, all unopened, stacked carefully in her pantry like a wall she didn't know she was building. "Why so many?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She tilted her head, genuinely confused. "Those were already here when I moved in," she said. But she hadn't moved in. This had been her home for over 2 decades. I helped her pick the paint for the kitchen. Remember pale yellow because it reminded her of morning sunshine. I knew every drawer in that house, every creak in the floor. Yet to her, it was unfamiliar, foreign, new, and that was when I began to understand. She was living in a parallel version of her life, one that looked like ours, but wasn't quite the same. In her world, time was not a line, but a web, sticky and overlapping. Days folded into each other, names blurred, and places shifted. The fridge became a window into that world. There was the expired milk she swore she just bought, a jar of mustard she didn't remember opening, even though it was half gone, 3 bags of frozen peas, none of which she recalled buying. I began to see these oddities not as clutter, but as clues, proof that the rules of her reality were changing. She believed strangers were entering her house and stalking her fridge while she slept. "They come in at night," she whispered once, eyes wide, "and they leave things. I don't know who they are." I wanted to correct her, to show her receipts, bank statements, delivery notices. But what would be the point? Logic doesn't live in her world anymore. Instead, I started writing little notes and leaving them on the fridge. "You bought these yesterday. Mom, you love granola bars." Or, "We made soup together last night. Remember?" Sometimes she'd read them and smile. Other times, she'd crumple them up, convinced they were someone else's handwriting. Her home is still filled with love, but also with ghosts, versions of herself from years ago, wandering through the present like they're trying to find their way back. And I've become a translator between timelines. I hold her grocery list like it's a treasure map, deciphering where her memory ended and her imagination began. Some days she's lucid enough to notice. She'll touch the edge of the fridge and say, "I don't remember it being this color," or "Did we always have this much food?" Her voice carries a tremor, not of fear, but of unfamiliarity, like waking up in someone else's dream. And on those days, I hold her hand, guide her through the kitchen, and say, "Yes, Mom, this is your home. You're safe." Because even if she's living in another version of reality, she deserves to feel like she belongs. Anger with no origin. She was never an angry woman. If anything, her nature was soft, too soft. Some would say the kind of person who baked cookies for neighbors she barely knew, who apologized when someone else bumped into her. She was warmth in human form, but now the warmth flickers. Some days, it disappears altogether. It began with small irritations, a misplaced scarf, a forgotten phone call. She'd furrow her brow, mutter something under her breath. But then, gradually, the edge sharpened. The irritation turned into blame, the blame into rage, and the rage, well, it had no real target. It just needed somewhere to land. Her twin sister, once her other half, became that target. "You took my money," she snapped one afternoon, voice trembling with a fury that didn't belong to the woman I knew. "You always take things from me." Her sister, confused and heartbroken, tried to laugh it off, but there was no laughter in my mother's eyes, only fire, raw and misplaced. I watched 2 women who'd once shared a crib, a birthday, a lifetime, now strangers in the fog of memory, and it broke something inside me. The anger wasn't just occasional, it was unpredictable. It came without warning. A favorite song could trigger it, a familiar face, a simple question. One moment, she'd be humming and smiling, The next, her eyes would narrow, and she'd say things that sliced through the air like knives carved from memory and misunderstanding. It took me a while to understand she wasn't angry at us. She was angry at the emptiness, at the confusion, at the terrifying sense that her world was unraveling, and no one had told her why. And I couldn't blame her for that. Imagine waking up every day in a world that feels familiar, but not quite right. Faces you should know feel distant. Rooms feel shifted. Time folds in strange ways. And the worst part, you know something is wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. Wouldn't that scare you? Wouldn't that make you lash out, too? So now, when the rage comes, I breathe. I stay calm. I speak softly. Even when her voice rises, I remind her she is safe, that no one is here to hurt her, that we love her still, always. And sometimes, just sometimes, her shoulders drop, her voice softens. She looks at me, almost like she recognizes the guilt in her own outburst, and says, "I don't know why I said that." I hold her hand and whisper, "It's okay," because I know the anger isn't really hers. It's just another symptom of the thief that's taken up residence in her mind. The speed of forgetting. It didn't always feel this fast. In the beginning, forgetting came in gentle waves, long spaces between moments of clarity. She might lose a detail here, a name there, but we had time to adjust, to breathe, to believe that maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be so bad. But now it feels like we're in free fall. Like someone pressed fast forward on her life, and no one told us the remote was broken. She forgets entire conversations we had this morning. She asks what day it is 4 times before noon, and then, just when I think she's drifting too far, she'll say something stunningly clear, beautifully her, and it'll break me all over again, because I know the moment won't last. It never does. I used to think I'd be ready, that this was something you could prepare for, like packing a bag before a storm. But how do you prepare for a slow disappearance, for the person you love unraveling in front of you? One memory, one word, one heartbeat at a time. There are moments I want to scream, not at her, never at her, but at the sky, the silence, the empty space where answers should be. I want to yell at the disease, demand it slow down, beg it to give her back, just for one more Christmas, one more birthday, one more morning where she knows my name. But dementia doesn't bargain, it just takes. And still, we keep showing up, we keep loving, we hold her hand while she fumbles for our names, and we pretend it doesn't hurt when she calls us someone else. We smile through the ache, we celebrate the small wins, the days she remembers how to tie her shoes, or makes her tea just the way she likes it, because even when her memories go, her essence lingers. The way she strokes my cheek when she's tired, the way she hums when she's nervous, the flicker of recognition in her eyes when she hears my laugh. Some days, I find myself cataloging her, like I'm trying to memorize her before she's gone. The way she wrinkles her nose when she disagrees, the softness of her voice when she says thank you, the way she always says, "Be safe when I leave," even if she doesn't remember who I am. I hold on to these fragments like lifelines, because I know there's a day coming, a day not so far away, when even these pieces might fade, when I'll be the stranger who brings her soup and brushes her hair and tells her she is loved. And when that day comes, I hope, I pray that somewhere inside her, even if the words are gone, the feeling remains that love, somehow, moves slower than forgetting. I became her daughter. It started subtly. She would call me sweetheart or honey, not unusual, not out of place. But then, one afternoon, as I was tucking a blanket over her knees, she looked at me with soft eyes and said, "Thank you, my daughter." I froze, not because it hurt, but because, strangely, it didn't. In that moment, it felt right, like she'd given me a name I didn't even know I'd been longing to hear. She has a daughter, a biological one, but I'm not her. I married her son. For years, I was the in-law loved. Yes, welcomed, certainly, but not hers, not fully. And yet, here we are, years later, with dementia rewriting the rules of belonging. Somewhere along the path of her forgetting, she chose me. And that is a kind of miracle. She doesn't always remember my name now. Sometimes I'm the nice girl or the lady who brings tea. But when she's scared, when the world feels too big, when the fog in her mind thickens, she reaches for me, like a child reaching for home, like instinct. There's something profound in that, something holy. I've stopped correcting her. When she calls me her daughter, I say, "Yes, Mom, I'm here," because the truth is, biology never mattered to love. What mattered was the way we held each other through the in-betweens, the doctor visits, the long nights, the moments when memory gave out but presence remained. She once told me, before the forgetting took root, that love was less about blood and more about choice, about showing up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, even when no one sees it but the person you're holding. Now, I understand what she meant, because every time I help her find her shoes, every time I sit beside her during her confusion, every time I whisper, "It's okay, I'm right here," I feel it, not obligation, not duty, but something deeper, something maternal in reverse, a circle of care closing in on itself. She may never remember the holidays we spent together, or the conversations over tea, or how she used to save me the crispiest part of the roast. But I remember, I carry those things in my body, in my hands, in the way I care for her, and maybe, in some invisible way, she does too. Maybe love leaves fingerprints deeper than memory. Maybe it lingers in the space between spoken words, in the eyes, in the gestures, in the way two souls recognize each other, even when the mind forgets. So yes, I became her daughter, and in this version of our story, that's the truest thing there is. Goodbyes without words. We say goodbye every day now, not in the way people expect, not with final words or heavy conversations. Our goodbyes are quieter, stitched into the spaces between actions. They happen in the hush of early morning, when I gently wake her, in the way she looks at me with uncertainty, then settles into a smile, like recognizing me through a veil. They happen in how I brush her hair. Slow, tender strokes, not just to untangle knots, but to preserve something, a ritual, a memory, a touch she might forget tomorrow, but that I need to give today. Sometimes she stares out the window for hours, watching a tree sway, birds hopping across the lawn. I sit beside her, saying nothing. It used to frustrate me, this silence, this stillness, but now I know it's in those moments that we say the most. Because even when she doesn't speak, her body remembers how to be held. Her hand still finds mine. Her fingers still curl into my palm. And I squeeze back, like saying, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And maybe that's all a goodbye needs to be. I used to dread the idea of losing her. I imagined it would come all at once, like a door slamming shut. But that's not how dementia works. It's not one goodbye. It's 1,000. A slow fading. A gradual slipping through your fingers. Like sand you try to hold tighter, but only lose faster. One day, she forgot her birthday. Another day, she forgot her husband's name. And one quiet Tuesday, she looked at me with a polite, distant smile and said, You're very kind. Do I know you? I smiled back. No, I said softly, but I know you. And that's when I understood that love isn't always about being remembered. Sometimes it's about remembering for both of you, carrying the weight of what once was, lighting the path so they don't have to walk in darkness alone. So now I say goodbye in small ways. In the way I tuck the blanket under her feet, just the way she used to do for her kids. In the way I tell her, again and again, that she is safe, loved, home. She may never say goodbye to me, not with words, but every time she forgets, it is a goodbye. And every time I remind her she's not alone, it's a hello, and I will keep saying hello for as long as I can, because sometimes the deepest goodbyes aren't the ones spoken, they're the ones carried, quietly, lovingly, again and again. Love that remains. One day, she won't know who I am. She'll look at me with soft, curious eyes, the kind you give to a stranger who feels oddly familiar. She might smile, she might not. She might call me nurse, or neighbor, or nothing at all. And I will smile back because I've made peace with the fact that memory has left the room. But love is still here. Love doesn't always need names. It doesn't require recognition to be real. It pulses in the quiet gestures, in the way she reaches for my hand when she's afraid, in the way her eyes soften when I brush a crumb from her shirt, in the way she leans toward my voice even when my name has slipped away. That's the strange gift dementia gives you. If you let it clarity about what truly matters, it peels away everything else, every label, every role, every expectation, until all that remains is presence, connection, the kind of love that doesn't demand to be remembered, only felt. I used to think this journey was about loss, and yes, it is, but it's also about resilience, about rediscovering what it means to love someone without condition or recognition, to pour into someone whose cup leaks, to give, not because it will be stored, but because in that moment it brings peace. Even now, there are glimpses. She'll laugh at a joke she doesn't fully understand. She'll hum a lullaby no one has sung in years. She'll whisper, "You're good to me," and look at me like maybe, just maybe, she knows. And in those moments, I cry, not out of grief, but gratitude, because even if she forgets me entirely, she will never be unloved, not for one single breath. I will continue to show up, to hold her, to care for her, to speak gently into the silence, because love doesn't disappear with memory. It lingers, it echoes, it settles into the spaces where memory used to live. And one day, when the final forgetting comes, when even the faintest spark has dimmed, I'll still be there, holding her hand, singing to her, telling her the story of her own beautiful life, even if only I remember it. Because some things don't need to be remembered to be true, and love real, deep, enduring love is one of them. Sometimes, what touches the heart most isn't just the story being told, but how it's remembered. To deepen the emotional journey of this video, we can add soft, cinematic story flashbacks, simple yet vivid moments from the past. Imagine her dancing in the kitchen barefoot, twirling to an old record, or sitting by a window in her youth, reading letters from her husband during wartime. These glimpses, threaded gently into the present timeline, not only bring her character to life, they let the viewer fall in love with the woman before the forgetting began. We can also include subtle shifts into the caregiver's perspective, the daughter, the son, the partner, or the friend who becomes the anchor in her storm. Their story is often unspoken, carried in quiet sighs and late-night Google searches, in whispered prayers and smiles held through tears. These moments don't need to be long, but when shown with tenderness, they reveal the invisible strength that holds everything together. Their love, their exhaustion, their devotion, it deserves to be seen. And finally, woven into the poetry of memory, we can gently introduce a few light medical insights, not as cold facts, but as soft explanations that give the audience clarity. Perhaps a single sentence about how Alzheimer's typically begins in the hippocampus, stealing short-term memory first, or a moment where a doctor explains why time feels scrambled. These touches add depth, helping viewers not just feel, but understand altogether. These enhancements won't shift the tone, but rather enrich it. They'll help the viewer not only witness the unraveling of memory, but truly walk alongside it. And in doing so, they'll feel less like spectators and more like companions on a sacred, shared path. Because in the end, this story isn't just about one woman's loss. It's about all of us. How we love, how we let go, and how we hold on. Dementia can take memories, but it can never take love. So if you're watching someone fade, hold them tighter, speak softer, and love louder. Because even when they forget the world, your love can remind them of home. If this story moved you, share it. Someone else might be walking the same path. Thank you for staying till the end. Subscribe for more real stories that touch the soul.